Bitcoin is sitting at 120,000 United States dollars, which is just absolutely absurd. But we have not even gotten to the tipping point of this cycle. And alts, although they are starting to move, we are not even close to a real alt season. I'm going to go over the factors of what is going to make that occur. But on top of that, why you are still very, very early on altcoins. I'm going to go over my bull thesis for alts. I'm going to go over my bull thesis for Ethereum, Bitcoin, as well as the coins that I am so isolated on in this market for a big run whenever the momentum does pick up in the altcoin scene. Because if you're watching this right now, you are still early for the altcoin run this cycle. Everyone's focused on Bitcoin and stuff like Hyperliquid, for example, those real top Titan type of tokens. But there's so much more opportunity in the market, and we're going to go over the plays that I am looking at in this video. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we dive into it, however, be sure if you enjoy the content here on the channel, all of the alpha from crypto gaming, AI, meme coins, RWA, everything top to bottom in crypto that you need to win in this market, be sure to like the video down below and subscribe to the channel for more every single week here on In the Game, and especially in the bull run. Last bull run, I did a video every single day for 100 days straight. We're not going to be doing that exactly here this bull run, but you can expect 4 to 5 uploads every single week to make sure we are dialed in to the most important part of this bull market. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsors here on In the Game. We have some incredible sponsors from 𝗪𝗏𝗃𝗏, as well as 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗏, the #1 no KYC centralized exchange. If you need a place to trade that is a centralized exchange with over 300 trading pairs across the board in the entirety of crypto, be sure to drop down below. Check out 𝗪𝗏𝗃. We have a link there in the description. You can get a sign-up bonus just for signing up for 𝗪𝗏𝗃 down below in the description. Now let's jump into it. Obviously, it's euphoric. Like, if you're not feeling euphoria, and look, everyone's underexposed. There's no cutting it. Like, everyone from Michael Saylor, he's still buying. If we just go look at, Saylor today, buying 4,225 more Bitcoin. So even the big dogs in the industry continue to lust over more and more Bitcoin. So if you're feeling underexposed, look, everyone is. And it's because it's a scarce asset, right? There's only 21 million Bitcoin in the world. So every one of us are fighting to get as much Bitcoin as humanly possible at this time. But if you're not looking at this chart right now, up 11%, we're sitting at 120K on the price. Like, this is a pretty euphoric time period. And it is one of those times, I think I saw Miles tweet this over the last weekend. It's one of those times where you could tell people, I told you, like, Bitcoin, crypto, this thing is not a fad. It makes a lot of sense, the digital gold thesis. And here we are at $120,000 today. We see ETH over 3,000. We see stuff like Hyperliquid around $48. If we filter the daily chart here, we're starting to see some pretty big runs like Ski Mask Dog, which is a big meme coin on Base, up 106%. We see Node AI GPU, a nice little 40% move on the weekly. We have 𝗬𝗎 with a little bit of a 40% move on the weekly as well. So pretty nice price action, but still, we are not at the point of the bull market where alt season is occurring. And I'm going to go over why that is, but also the coins that I still think have tons of upside. Because if you just look through here, I think we have a lot of opportunity on alts. Another one that's been just crushing it for us here is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is over $400 as of today. So let's just go ahead and dive into some of the headlines, move into the altcoin scene, and then which alts I still think have so much upside from here. We see yesterday, Bitcoin actually ended up flipping Amazon to be the 5th largest asset by market cap in the world, which is insane. And if you see here, it's still about a 8 to 10x away from something like a gold. And I think eventually Bitcoin will be the #1 asset class in the entire world. So for me, that is something I would be targeting over the course of the long term. As well, we see Metaplanet's CEO saying the inbound interest, this is another one of those Bitcoin treasury companies, kind of like MicroStrategy, that the inbound interest is rising as the firm hits $7 billion. We see MicroStrategy buying more. We see Michael Saylor short Bitcoin if you hate money, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And I loved this tweet here because I do truly think if you own a Bitcoin in the future, you will be a part of the 1% financially. Like, I feel like it's still such an underrated narrative. institutions and conglomerates and all this stuff, they see the value in Bitcoin. However, the average person still is super sidelined on Bitcoin and they still don't understand it. So it does favor, you know, as the old Crypto.com commercial, history or fortune favors the bold, right? So I do think if you just have a piece of Bitcoin moving forward, if you want to be a millionaire, get to one Bitcoin. There has never been a more direct path. And I actually think that that logic is pretty sound at this point in time. But as far as altcoins go, we are still sitting in a range right now where Altseason still has not even hit its any sort of stride at this point in time. And if you feel like you've missed alt entries, there's so many good opportunities that are still in the red over 30 days. But more importantly, ETH is still sitting at like 3K at this point in time, right? And we're not even going to see alts remotely start to move in a really aggressive way until we see Ethereum ripping towards that $3,500 or $4,000 level. So all the attention in the market right now is on Bitcoin. But meanwhile, the smart money is accumulating Ethereum, which is going to set off a really biblical level of an alt season if this does transpire, because Sharplink Gaming actually just became the biggest holders of Ethereum, and they hold more than the Ethereum Foundation, which is absolutely crazy. And Bitmine Immersion now holds 163 Ethereum, and the ETH treasury wave is now here. So companies are not only just stacking Bitcoin at this point in time, companies are beginning to stack Ethereum, which is going to be massive for the potential altcoin cycle. And when I look across the market, there's a few things, and I think we have to play this step by step. So right now, it's going to be the select few, right? The Hyperliquids, the 𝗬𝗎s, the 𝗕𝗟s. There's certain coins that are going to get attention in this market, and as long as Bitcoin continues to move, these tokens are going to perform very, very well. A, because they're revenue driven. B, because they have so many users and influx of liquidity coming into them day by day. So you want to be paying attention more so to the main characters right now. And whenever I say that, it's not the time to scroll down the list here and pray to buy like a $300,000 market cap coin and just wait till it pumps, because you can capitalize on these higher market caps at this point in time. And then when the cycle does give us those opportunities, you can then filter that capital downward at the right time. But right now we are in a Bitcoin and specific other markets at this point in time. Obviously today, the big launch is Pump.Fun. And I would not be surprised. Let me find the Pump.Fun token here. I really wouldn't be surprised to see Pump perform similarly in a longer term price action perspective to something like Hyperliquid. Now, do I think it's going to hit $40 billion like Hyperliquid did? No, probably not. Like, we're sitting at 47 billion as the fully diluted market cap here on Hyperliquid. But if I just pull up the all chart here, this is a coin that started off at $8 and now it's sitting at $48, a clean 6x from its initial launch price. But it was kind of that same style of drop. Like, it was very hyped, no pun intended, because of the hype token. And look, I still think Hyperliquid, by the way, goes to $100 this cycle. It is hovering around those all-time highs, but to me, Hyperliquid is by far the biggest play of the cycle, strongest altcoin. It is the leader. Every time Bitcoin moves, this token does super well. But the reason that is because it's such a revenue driver, and they buy back the token every single day. And Pump.Fun has vowed to do something similar. They're going to be using a portion of their fees to actually buy back the token, the Pump.Fun token. So that is going to be something that can definitely move the price. But on top of that, it's going to keep the price stable. And of course, Pump.Fun is one of the most revenue driving applications in the entire crypto space. Like, when we just look at Pump.Fun's revenue numbers, they are down because the meme coin cycle has slowed down. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this dip on the daily, which it is. It's down 25% so far on the day. But I think this is going to be a hated token, and the amount of liquidity that is coming in to buy it is going to be heavy. I wouldn't be surprised if this one does trend to the upside over time, because look, people love revenue plays, and I do believe that over the long term, Pump.Fun is going to make a big resurgence here, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to try to wait and see how low this can go in the short term, but I might put in a longer term position on Pump.Fun, where everyone thinks that Pump.Fun is extractive with this token launch. Look, Do you consider the casino extractive? No, they just give you the games to play. Do you consider Hyperliquid extractive? No, they just give you the casino to play on. Win or lose, doesn't really matter. Pump.Fun's the same thing. They just laid out the casino floor for meme coins and they said, have at it. And there's a market for that. So you can't hate the player, hate the game at the end of the day. And I do think that Pump.Fun's token will do well long term. So whenever I do decide to make a long-term entry here, I will 100% let you guys know. But the strategy that we actually laid out on this token last week in my Pump.Fun video played out pretty well. If we just go look here, we had said to try to buy the presale. So if you bought the presale, you're up about 30% right now on your money in just a couple of days. Not a bad, that's not a bad thing at all. So we love that. But on top of that, we said to long the perps pre-market. And that was whenever it was at 4.8 billion. And it went all the way up here to 6.3 billion over the weekend. Next up would have been to short the open as airdrop sales and different pre-sale sale pressure would have been heavy. And then look for a longer term entry off that dip. So this is now where we're at. We're looking for that long-term entry on a potential dip for the Pump.Fun token. So that is number one for me. I will be looking out for an entry here because just like Hyperliquid is just the trading app. But this is the Hyperliquid of meme coins. No matter what you want to say, this is that play. So I'm looking for a longer term entry here, and I'll update you guys whenever that does unfold. Number two for me is 𝗬𝗎. And yes, everyone at the beginning of this cycle and throughout the cycle are saying that 𝗬𝗎 is the next Solana in a way. And we see 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗲, really pivoting his thesis, and he's like heavy 𝗬𝗎 at this point. A lot of smart money has moved into 𝗬𝗎. But when we look at this chart as well, I just think, first of all, this level's easy to take out. All-time highs, $5.19. I think we take that out pretty easily over the short term. But in the long term specifically, this chain is growing so much. The DeFi has risen like crazy. If you just look at this chart, even over the last 4 months, the TVL has literally doubled, so 100% gain in TVL. And then on top of that, the stablecoin market cap is up 8% over the course of the last 7 days. The stablecoins here on this chain have 5x'd over the last year, which is just insane. So the money is flowing into 𝗬𝗎. And it is one of those plays, like people focus on Hyperliquid and this, but I do think that 𝗬𝗎 is going to be I still think it's a sleeper. Because also, it's not the easiest token to get out there and buy. Like, it is on centralized exchanges, but you got to bridge over to 𝗬𝗎. You got to really do some hurdles to get involved with this token. And it kind of is just like Hyperliquid in that regard. So it's an undersaturated chain. And to be honest, it's an undercrowded trade. So for me, 𝗬𝗎 is absolutely a dynamic play for this cycle, in my opinion. At $3.84, we were buying this, around $2.50 on this channel. So we loved those entries here. Whenever we look at this month chart, we got down here to $2.49. And we were screaming to buy this token. It's up about 50% from that level. But I do think all-time highs of $5 are easy to take out on this token. And then from there, we'll have to see what happens when we hit price discovery. So for me, I'm watching a long-term entry on Pump.Fun. I do think Hyperliquid doubles from here, goes to $100 this cycle. Obviously, you can never get enough Bitcoin, and that was the preface of the beginning of the show. But looking at the altcoin market, I think 𝗬𝗎 is still one of the best entries, as well as Avalanche. And also, more specifically, DeFi seems to be making a big resurgence here, but that's no mistake. Whenever DeFi heats up is whenever the market is really hot. And obviously, right now with $120,000 Bitcoin, the market is pretty hot. I mean, we would have to say so ourselves. But looking across the board, we have big launches coming through the door. We have 𝗏𝗏𝗏, which has 10 million in TVL over the first 72 hours, and their first reward epoch is about to start. TGE for this token is also tomorrow night. So for me, I'm waiting until all of this stuff is live. The token's live, whole platform's clicking, and there's like black emissions, that type of thing, so I can make a really valid tutorial. So I will have a tutorial coming up on the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 DEX for those of you guys who want to know more of how to use this platform, the ultimate liquidity hub on Avalanche. But there's more plays than just 𝗏𝗏𝗏. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on that. But we also have today Project X launched on Hyperliquid. This is like a liquidity play on Hyperliquid. So just like what, our trading platform at NEXUS. For example, you hop over here, you can long and short different cryptos and TradFi. And if you're not already using Nexus, by the way, I will leave a link down below in the description. By far one of the best experiences in the decentralized exchange space, and you can up to 100x leverage stocks or crypto. But what I'm alluding to here is this is more so, we also use Hyperliquid's technology, so you can qualify for the next Hyperliquid airdrop on Nexus, but you can also do that with Project X. So this just went live, has $1 million in TVL, and I do think this makes it a little bit easier to get involved with the Hyperliquid DeFi scene. But ultimately, I think this bodes well for other DeFi tokens, and the one that I would really be eyeing at this point in time. So we've given you guys a meme coin, we've given you guys a top protocol play with 𝗬𝗎, but I think 𝗕𝗓, I wouldn't be surprised to see the fully diluted get back over $1 billion here in the short term, which would be a nice 25% trade. And I just think DeFi, the greed heats up throughout the cycle. People want to see number go up. What better mechanism than seeing that high yield number, and that number just keeps running up? Like, DeFi does super well when the market is hot, and that's the climate we're in. So I'm looking at 𝗕𝗓 as my active token play here, because Project X and Black Hole do not have a token. But also, I think if Black Hole can capture market share, which obviously they have 10 mil TVL already, that could be a big spark for Avalanche's token. Because unfortunately, when you look at Avalanche, it definitely is the most underrated play in all of crypto, especially for the price action, which is very disappointing. Like, there's no sugarcoating that. The fact that Avalanche is still sitting at $21 when they're backed by BlackRock, Citi, JP Morgan, Gunzilla, MapleStory. There's so much going on this chain, and metrics are at an all-time high, but just seeing where the price is pretty upsetting. But I do think if there's a big liquidity surge into Black Hole, people are making money on the yields, this could bode well for Avalanche, as what we saw last cycle with like the Wonderland Times. That was on Avalanche, and that was a pretty Ponzi-esque DeFi play, but it did bring a lot of liquidity and attention to the platform. So if people start making gains off of the Black Hole platform, it could bode well for a trade on Avalanche as well. And then, of course, I know you guys want to know gaming. So far, the tokens I'm still isolating on are 𝗬𝗎. We have Hyperliquid. I still think is just undervalued. Just based on the numbers, the revenue, I think it's going to continue to go up. It's just a cyclical play. So we have 𝗬𝗎, we have Hype. I'm looking for a long-term entry on Pump.Fun. For a DeFi token, I like 𝗕𝗓, and DeFi is definitely heating up with stuff like Black Hole and Project X, etc. And then moving on down that line of ones that I just see great entries on still today would be something like a Superverse or a Ronin. If you're still into gaming long-term, gaming coins are just beat down to shreds right now. Oh, and I would say for an AI, I do think 𝗏𝗔𝗄𝗃, despite us buying at those 275 and 325 levels, I still think at 400, I think this token can go to $1,000 this cycle. So I'm definitely still bullish on 𝗬𝗏. But moving into the gaming side, it's really like pick your poison. Do you want to roll with Superverse? Do you want to roll with Beam? Super could dip after the Black Hole airdrop, by the way, so maybe not the best DCA today. You could just pick your poison, though. Prime, Beam, Ronin, IMX. It is a really good time to DCA gaming, because gaming is just in the dumps. And we could have some catalysts coming up here. And if you maybe want to try to trade the gun token, that could be the one. Something monumental is happening for Off the Grid next week. Drop your predictions below. So who knows, maybe a new game mode, expansion, the 100-player mode, or whatever the case is. Or we could be finally getting mainnet, which could drive degeneracy and speculation into the gaming space. And yes, gamers by nature aren't degenerates, but if you just look at the CSGO model, there's a whole market of players and there's a whole market of traders. I don't think that it's a bad thing that there are both in any given gaming ecosystem. Mainnet launch would go a long way for not just Off the Grid and the gun token, but also just the gaming space. So I'm hoping to see something from this. So if you want to try to trade this, it could end up being a buy the rumor, sell the news. But for me, I'd just be looking for more long-term entries on gaming coins if you still believe there will be a gaming cycle. And then last but not least, there are still other pre-sale opportunities out there to take advantage of. Pump.Fun, obviously, about a 30% gain on launch. We have Earned Network here, 11 chains you can just plug and play into any project here. Their team has managed over $250 million in TVL. This functions on ETH, Base, ARB, Optimism, 𝗬𝗎, Solana, all of the big dog chains. And I, knock on wood, I would hope to see this eventually go live for something like a Hyperliquid. So they really do a good job of covering the grounds on DeFi, which once again, I think DeFi is heating up like crazy. Like, the numbers don't lie. The amount of projects that are kind of starting to move into that DeFi realm, even with Nexus, we're going to have DeFi, and we're probably going to use Earn Network to be able to power that. So if you want to get involved with this right now, the pre-sale price is at 10 cents. Their target launch is at 20 cents. That's not a guarantee, but you can check out the link down below in the description. I'll just leave this down there. You can check it out, do your own research. And if you want to get involved, this sale does end in about 1 day's time. So guys, that's about it. That's what I'm looking at in the altcoin market. I do think we need to see dominance on Bitcoin plateau or go down, but right now, Bitcoin's the main character. Retail's not really here in the fact of degenning meme coins or altcoins, whatever the case is. But I do think for altcoin perspectives, we still have so much time to reap the rewards of the upside here, while Bitcoin is really just Cinderella at the ball right now, just having a great time, right? But once Cinderella starts getting drunk off the punch and then puts her money back into the altcoin scene, we can start making a lot of money in that market. So that might have been a kind of a wild analogy there, but that's just kind of the way that it is, right? Bitcoiners are starting to drink, like they're getting drunk at the party, and then they're going to start throwing some sats at different projects, and that's when we will make our hay in the altcoin market. So guys, like the video down below and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, a pleasure to bring you guys the alpha on this Monday. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Like, subscribe, play well, my friends, and of course, stay bullish, my friends.